You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Imus.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1091, titled Sentomaru. And Travis, I think this chapter, after we just witnessed, should be called Spentomaru. Wouldn't you agree?
Man, so much just happened.
I mean, I'm spent even more than he is, and he's on the ground. As usual, we will be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this chapter. So if you have not yet read chapter 1091, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app. Linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new chapters are going to be available to read for free up to 3 weeks after the official release, whenever you want, if you're subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we do recommend. We're recording this a week late because we had some scheduling conflicts. So at this point, it's like 2 weeks, but yeah, you get a little bit of time. And again, just subscribe. It's worth it. You're going to be able to read One Piece. Now, if we do have live action people who watch the live action show for the first time and are kind of like, I want more One Piece content. I doubt anybody's listening to this because of the title, but if you are for some reason, you should read the manga, watch the anime too. You do whatever you want, but I mean, the easiest way to do that, the most efficient way to do that is Shonen Jump. But I'm just putting that out there for like the statistically improbable chance that somebody needs to hear that right now. I don't know. But okay, Travis Imus. What if somebody's like, I don't know what I should do, but I know Travis and John, they tend to have the answers. And I'm just talking about general stuff in life, not just the manga. But what should they do? Because people come to us whenever they want. I mean, I like reading emails, and I like connecting on digital online internet communities. Travis, do either of those things exist for Rookie Pirate Radio? Please help me out.
John, you are such in luck, because I do, in fact, have just the thing for you and anyone who needs to seek both life advice and find a place to put their One Piece theories. You can send us an email at rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. I'll say it again.
I didn't catch that.
I'll
sorry.
say it again. It's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Thank you.
But if you want a quicker response, you don't want to sit there staring at your inbox waiting to find the secrets of life, then you can join us on our In Between Drafts Discord server, which is linked in the show notes. Pop on in. We have channels both for One Piece spoilers and for non-spoiler channels. So if you are somebody who is somehow listening to this and has watched the live action and you still want to catch up, you want to talk with us about it, you can do that just fine without having anything spoiled for you. But we also talk about all the things that In Between Drafts covers, from film, TV, music, and more. And we would love to see you there.
But wait, what about comics?
Oh, we do have comics.
Oh, that was a close one. Wait, video games?
Yeah, even video games.
Wait, what if I'm not sure which pizza chain is the best between Domino's and Pizza Hut? Bet you don't have that one.
Oh boy, we do in fact have a Pizza Wars channel, and I will add.
You're joking.
I will add, right? Since we're talking about the,
I brought it up because of the color spread.
Because of the color spread. To speak to that, just to throw the ball. I did tell you I was ordering pizza before this, and it was in fact Domino's, and it was.
You know what? You're on my side.
I'm on your side.
Versus Domino's. Wow. Yeah, for once we agree on something. Definitely not One Piece theories, but on pizza chains, I think we have your allies. One of us is Lob, one of us is Luffy. I think we both know that Travis is the cool law guy, huh? But I shouldn't say that, because I don't think I'm Pirate King. Never mind. Main beats. Let's talk about this chapter. I'm so ready. And by the way, we should mention, we are going to talk more about the live action on Netflix, for those of you who are curious. We're hoping to do a longer conversation about season 1. That's coming soon. We hope to talk about it, and hopefully people will have time to watch the whole thing, although I imagine people have already binged it. It's doing super well, so we'll have that conversation on a later day. But also, Travis, your season 1 review is on In Between Drafts, no?
Yes, it went up this past weekend.
If you were in the Discord, people would know, huh? They'd be able to see it.
They would see it
and talk about
it. And please go give it a read. I wrote it from the perspective of, again, not spoilers. We won't talk about too much about things that might be to come, just the show itself, brass tacks. But man, that I took like 10 edit passes on that before I even turned it in, because there was a lot to talk about for this show. I'm sure we could do it all day. We did it right before we hit record. We need to get into this manga chapter.
That's true. It's true. I'm done waiting. I feel like, the anticipation's been real. We've had a lot of break weeks lately. It's been kind of a scattered release schedule. We're in the middle of a break week now, but excited for chapter 1092 to come up. So let's talk about this one. All right. So chapter 1091, again, it's called Sentomaru. And we have a fun color spread of all the Straw Hats except for Robin and Frankie eating a huge pizza with some flamingos. And I'm sure it's foreshadowing something that we're going to see in like 12 years. But yes, that pizza looks unbelievably delicious. And, it looks like they're on an island in Italy. It looks like a nice time. Who knows? All right. So this chapter kicks off on the shores of Egghead Island, with conflict kicking off between the Pacifista Mark IIIs and the Marine Fleet, as well as the Sea Beasts, and we even see some of the Vice Admirals too, getting into the fray. We cut to the Labo phase where Usopp is remarking upon the ongoing battle, and Vegapunk claims that their defenses, and he's talking about the Egghead Island defenses, because of the Pacifistas and the Sea Beasts, are utterly impenetrable. So Usopp kind of figures out like that's why they sent an admiral, which they have spotted Kizaru at this point. And Vegapunk feels pretty bad about Sentomaru's situation as a result, knowing, of course, it's personal and the fact that he wouldn't blame Sentomaru for wanting to run away. But Sentomaru has not run away. We go to the fight happening between Kizaru and Sentomaru, which we saw at the beginning of last chapter. And Sentomaru is just barely holding him off, but refuses to surrender. Kizaru finds it odd that Sentomaru is helping the Straw Hat Pirates at all, but Sentomaru assures it's only because he's looking out for Vegapunk, the man who saved his life. That's when we get a quick flashback to when a young Sentomaru met a young Vegapunk and Kizaru. We already learned about this some time ago in an SBS, of like how they met and the bears and all that stuff. This was also quickly teased in an earlier recent chapter, but the gist is that Vegapunk employed Sentomaru, gave him a job, who at that point was just a starving kid and an outcast of his village. And when we cut to the present, Kizaru mentions that he took Sentomaru under his wing. We know Sentomaru always calls him uncle. Sentomaru was trained by Kizaru. That's why his defense is so powerful, and getting Garp and Kuzan vibes for what it's worth. But yeah, for this reason, Sentomaru is quickly overpowered. He's up against his master, up against his boss, and Kizaru manages to wrangle the authority chip away from Sentomaru, giving him a chance to command the Pacifistas to help the Navy ships sink the Sea Beast weapons, totally turning the tide of the battle. Watching this unfold, Atlas and Vegapunk scramble to take the shield system down so they can all escape, and York taunts them with the reminder that Kizaru is light itself and can pass right through the laser barrier, and that's exactly what Kizaru sets off to do. From there, we see the Vega Force 1 carrying the Thousand Sunny over to the rendezvous point, with Luffy, Bonnie, and Frankie inside of it. Back in the Labo phase, by the way, I think Lilith is there too, but in the Vega Force 1, I think it's implied. Back in the Labo phase, Stussy notices Hattori, the pigeon, making a noise, and Rob Lucci goes after Vegapunk to kill him, to assassinate him. So Stussy takes on his finger gun attack herself, which saves Vegapunk's life but gravely wounds her. Sanji, whatever you like, immediately takes Nami's bubble gun and uses it on Kaku, right as Zoro attacks Lucci with two of his swords. And he concludes that Lucci has made his move now that he has backup, which, Lucci claims that between him and Kizaru, everyone's going to die, and Zoro doubts this, of course, as he pushes his attack against Lucci through the window of the Labo phase, sending them both in the air. We immediately cut then to Admiral Kizaru behind the Vega Force 1 and the Thousand Sunny, but Luffy is already outside to greet him. Of course, in the last chapter, he sensed Kizaru, and, no big spoiler, no big twist. It just was Kizaru who Luffy sensed. It was the simple answer. He attacks Kizaru with a kick coated in Conqueror's Haki, or Advanced Conqueror's Haki, and tells him that compared to 2 years ago, the Straw Hat Pirates are 100 times stronger now. Should also mention a couple times in this chapter, Sabari Archipelago gets invoked, and rightfully so. This whole arc, I mean, really, Travis, I mean, we are just like, it's Sabari Redux, but with, I think, the pleasure of seeing the Straw Hats in such a different place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those things where the cynic in me can't help but be like, is this gonna go badly? But it's really nice to see Luffy absolutely go right to the face of an admiral, that admiral having to actually block. I mean, think about not just Kizaru on Sabaody, but Luffy facing the admirals at Marineford. It feels like an entire lifetime has passed.
Yeah, I mean, within the context of One Piece, I mean, it's been at least 2 years of the time skip. And I think at this point in the story, it's been around half a year, maybe a little bit more, since the return to Sabaody Archipelago arc, when the post-time skip kicked off. And yeah, I mean, Luffy's right. I mean, they were probably, 50 times stronger at the beginning of the post-time skip, and I think that they've accelerated their growth in that time. I think that's a very One Piece thing, where they become stronger and stronger, not just when they're training to their own devices, but when they're together, they're going on adventures and they're pushing themselves to their limits. We saw that, from Fishman Island, which wasn't really for them, it was like a light jog. Punk Hazard, kind of the same deal. But, Dressrosa was a big test. Whole Cake Island was a big test. And then Wano was the ultimate kind of, trial by fire. Almost literally, we're in the anime right now, and we're kind of getting finally to the end of the Kaido versus Luffy fight. And it's just amazing to see that growth. I think, over time has been pretty believable to see. They've really sweat this out to get to the place where they are now. I think it would be very dissatisfying for Luffy to not even put up a decent fight, if not better than that. Now, here are the factors that the whole fandom has been debating this, and that's, can Luffy handle Kizaru in his current state right now? He noticeably does not attack in Gear 5th. He immediately went to Gear 5th against Rob Lucci. He's not doing that here. That tells me, and maybe you as well, that he's pacing himself because he's taking this fight way more seriously, and he doesn't want to just blow his big power up, something that will really weaken him. The other takeaway you could say is that he's still pretty injured from everything going on with the Seraphim. We actually don't know if he went Gear 5th during all of that. He probably didn't, but it's possible, right? He was really sweating it with those Seraphim before, and it's hard to say whether or not he's at full strength. We see him eating food on the Thousand Sunny, because I think he's desperately I need to eat some meat right now and get into that place where I can take this on. He doesn't really have backup in this fight. I don't think Frankie and Lilith and Bonnie are going to be any help whatsoever. One-on-one, what are you thinking? I mean, I know you're feeling cynical or wanting to be cynical, but what's up?
So the one thing that I will say I'm not cynical about is that this is not going to be a haymaker fight for Kizaru. This is not going to be easy peasy, pick off the Straw Hats. This is going to be a brawl at this point. I wasn't sure if we were getting a brawl. I was kind of back and forth on how this was going to go, but now that we finally have an opportunity where Luffy can take the fight to an admiral, they have to get away, but as of right now, there's nowhere to get away to. The shields haven't come down. It is objectively better for Luffy to not only take the fight straight to Kizaru, but to drag that fight out.
Yes.
And absolutely, he was carb loading on the ship. Everybody was like, oh, Luffy's scared of the presence and everything. He reacted exactly the way that we would expect. Hey, he's had a couple of brawls this arc now. Time to recharge. Let's get some meat in the boy. Easy stuff. Pretty straightforward, Luffy. I'm not too worried about his condition because that is the good old fashioned Monkey D. Luffy grin of confidence. He's not worried about it yet. As for not going to Gear 5th, I would say that this is a situation where it's not just that he's taking this seriously. It's that Luffy really had to push himself to fight Rob Lucci, but at the end of the day, he won that fight. Luffy,
did he really have to push himself? It seemed like he did it pretty easily.
No, I mean in the original fight. I mean in the original fight. Sorry,
we're talking about on Egghead.
In Enies Lobby, Luffy at one point was basically on death's doorstep. So if you're Luffy and you're constantly thinking about this, you're comparing that fight that you still won way back before you were even remotely as powerful as you were, to the man who made short work of you and your crew without you even getting a chance to go that hard. I mean, it would just make sense to not wear out your ace in the hole this quickly, because in the event that he fails, in the event that this doesn't work, and let's be honest, he doesn't even fully understand what happens when he goes into Gear 5th. He just knows what it is and is kind of working with it instinctively. We know more about it than he does, and none of us really know like what the toll actually is on his body, how long he really can keep it up. His fight against Kaido, I don't know that that's a good metric, because that fight was a multi-stage fight. He was literally dead at one point before Gear 5th even kicked in. So, I mean, we're talking about running on fumes during that fight. He needed to close it as soon as possible. Here, it would probably be better to try to kind of gauge where Kizaru's power level is at the moment, not in a power scaling way, but in a, how do I get around this guy? How do I deal with this guy who I know for a fact has taken me down before in a way that, I can't just play around with? He's not here to have fun. He's here to take this as seriously as possible.
No, I think you're right. Broadly speaking, I mean, there are a lot of things he can do to drag out the fight. And there are a lot of methods he can use to fight Kizaru that do not involve going Gear 5th. But I do think that's where the battle probably has to head if he has any chance of escaping or dealing enough damage to put up a real fight, but not with the intent to bring the guy completely down. That's not what he's here to do. He might still have those gloves that can punch light, right? That was seeded way back at the beginning of Egghead when he was with Atlas, and so that's already sort of been established that exists. We don't know if he has that, though. He didn't know that Kizaru was here until just now, so it's not something he could have prepared for necessarily, but he does have at least Lilith around, so maybe he has access to that kind of weapon, which he would need. At the same time, does he really need a weapon like that since he can fight a Logia with Haki? It's unclear to me how useful that would be, but I just want to say, if he does go Gear 5th, I mean, we've seen him kind of manage to catch lightning. This is Luffy at a stage where I think we're going to see a weird sort of what is really the difference between light and lightning in this respect? Because he's rubber, so lightning doesn't really affect him. But light seems like a different story. He's weak to cutting attacks, so any kind of light sword is obviously going to be its own sort of hurdle for him. This isn't like when he was up against Thunder Bagua. There are a lot of factors, and I think that Kizaru is really strong. But ultimately, I'm kind of wondering if Kizaru is going to realize that fighting Luffy is taking up too much time and is concerned that Rob Lucci can't take Zoro and that he needs to sort of just, leave Luffy be and kind of go for everybody else. Because if he starts moving super fast, what is Luffy going to do? That's the thing I'm kind of wondering. What is Kizaru's motivation to stick it out here with Luffy? Because he doesn't have to beat Luffy here. He can just sort of kill Vegapunk and do all of that. I don't know if he would want to try to avoid more destruction because they have to keep everything, from being destroyed. They mentioned that again, that's on the checklist to avoid destroying the power plant. I wonder if it's going to be a threat, right? If you don't let us leave, we're going to blow this stuff up. I don't know. There are a lot of directions this can go in because I think Oda, as usual, has put the seeds of so many different possible branches here. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be an easy fight for either of them. The people who are saying that he's going to KO Kizaru in a couple moves,
that's not what these are for. That wouldn't be satisfying. I enjoyed seeing Rob Lucci get played with, by Gear 5th and everything, but I still say I would enjoy a proper rematch because, again, Rob Lucci's one of those really iconic bad guys. Kizaru is the same way. We need the satisfaction of actually going through the motions on this. And something that I think is worth pointing out is that Kizaru also has a strong memory of Luffy. He was there when Luffy has done some of his most nonsense things. And who is to say that he doesn't have information about the Nika fruit? It's very possible that he knows something now because he's been on a boat with a Gorosei member. That could be a thing that has prompted it. But speaking of that Gorosei member who's hiding out on a boat, he's got to come out, right? Something has to happen here that forces him to intervene. There has to be a shoe to drop somewhere. Maybe
Blackbeard
that's Kizaru. I mean,
still unaccounted. Caribou still somewhere.
I mean, the Seraphim seem like the obvious answer, right? At this point, because the Pacifista have been regained.
Yeah.
It's possible that Luffy beats Kizaru and gets the control chip, and then That seems kind of anticlimactic. So I feel like the Seraphim are the actual wild card in this, where maybe Kizaru releases them to try to take control back. Can't. So instead, they need Jay Garcia Saturn to make an appearance. I don't think he's going to fight. I don't.
You just think that he would get into the story for that, but like have a big reveal, have a big because it would be satisfying, right, to have some sort of progress in terms of the Gorosei confronting main players of the series. So I would be totally with you there.
It's just the Chekhov's gun of the situation, right? Even in this chapter, we go back over the control hierarchy of the Pacifist and the Seraphim because, one, it's a little bit confusing, so it's worth rehashing every time we get a chance, especially with all these breaks. But for two, you don't put the big old men at the top of that list and not pull that trigger, especially now that one of them is actually here. This is relevant and it will come up. And if anything is going to throw a wrinkle into the Luffy-Kizaru fight, it's going to be Kizaru having backup.
I do wonder, because another scenario could be that they fight and they have their big skirmish and something twitches in Kizaru about what's happening, and something convinces him to leave. Not to surrender like he's been defeated, but to abandon the Gorosei for some reason we're not privy to. Because I just find this guy so suspicious. I kind of just wonder if there's something else going on with him, of this being this like lazy but loyal person who's just waiting for the right moment to do a certain something. Because I feel like you need some way to push Kizaru out of the spotlight, no pun intended, so that the Straw Hat Pirates can get on the ship and the barrier can go down and they can try to escape, and then there's some confrontation between them and the Gorosei of some kind. I don't know. But like, how do you get Kizaru out of that? Well, I don't think Luffy has time to defeat. I think to defeat him, he'd have to go all out. On the other hand, if you do try to nerf Kizaru in some way because the Nika fruit is so broken, then I guess like it's not the end of the world, because we do have the Holy Knights and they're supposed to be pretty threatening too, right? And so like, how do you balance the power scaling there of like, well, how powerful are they going to be? And, is there a way for us to see that in action of like, well, Kizaru couldn't stand up against the Nika fruit, but if Luffy went up against like Figurlin Garling or something, he'd be one-shotted. Like, I just wonder if we're going to get anything that's going to sort of like reset the stakes a little bit, because it is feeling a little bit like, the Straws are getting a little big for their britches. They did beat Kaido, but, there's got to be more to it.
Well, and then I take you back to the references. Everyone is thinking Sabaody now. Not just us, but the characters are all saying to themselves, this is starting to look kind of sweatily familiar now. There has got to be something that complicates this. And again, I don't want to be Mr. Morge. I don't want to be like, this is all going to fail, kind of thing. But I can't shake this vibe that whatever the Egghead incident is, it is not exclusively Straw Hat Luffy was at Egghead Island and maybe a Vegapunk is dead. There's got to be something else here. I mean, the Straw Hats know, for example, about the Mother Flame. They know that it's a thing that exists. They don't know what it means, but that doesn't mean that there aren't people in the Labo phase that couldn't tell them or might be curious. Nico Robin might be interested in something that is a callback. Maybe the Mother Flame is a callback to something written in the ancient poneglyphs, and so that tips her off. I mean, there's all these reasons why they may want to end up staying, why they may feel like they need to destroy the Labo phase. There's so many different things that could really complicate this. And I think that is where the new tension is coming from. Because we're all looking at these fights and we're all saying Gear 5th. And we're looking at Zoro and we're like, Zoro's going to make quick work of Lucci as well. That's kind of how I expect this to go.
We'll see.
We'll see. I would love, again, I want to see a proper Rob Lucci fight. Zoro can handle him for sure. Let's let that happen. But, they're all more powerful now. Sanji even acts in a way that is nothing short of competent. A woman was harmed in front of him, and instead of being an absolute weirdo about it, he is immediately pragmatic. He's got that bubblegum. He's bubbled Kaku before he can even move. He is on it. And that's just competency that the Straw Hats didn't really fully have at the time. So how do you weigh that against the growth? Well, you throw the problems that they have at them in a more complicated way. This isn't a situation like if Luffy had all the context that we have, this isn't a situation that he's going to be able to punch his way out of. Because even in the best case scenario, and they just get Vegapunk out, what does that mean for York? There doesn't seem to be a plan for York. If they leave York behind, then it kind of doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. This is mostly a vanity project for the world government. So, like, they just don't want the original Vegapunk studying the Void Century. That's it. You know, a victory here isn't even really a victory. So these are those complications that we're really going to have to deal with. Sure, Gear 5th is very powerful, but we've never actually seen an admiral at their full strength. We've just seen the literally climate affecting after effects of them. Maybe that's just a threat.
All I can think in this moment, honestly, is, are we going to get like a Kizaru weakness? You know, I feel like everybody's got to have a weakness. And I got to wonder if Luffy has been thinking about this defeat from Sabaody all this time and is like at this point gonna be prepared of like, I've been waiting for this moment and I know exactly how to deal with you. And I don't know, I kind of wonder if we are going to get something that's going to show Kizaru that like, oh, I can't actually try to take him down right now. Like, I don't really, like, in a long drawn out battle, I don't come out on top. And that convinces him to maybe even abandon the fight altogether and not care, because Luffy's not really on, like, let's look at the checklist again, right? He said a checklist to keep safe: the power plant, Punk Records, York. So he can't protect the power plant, Punk Records, and York from where he is right now. He has to, and also his checklist to be eliminated is Vegapunk, which I think he's communicating with Lucci to help him, but he needs to verify that himself. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if he's going to try to bypass Luffy altogether, or I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not just a clean cut fight. This isn't just a brawl. They both have multiple factors that they have to take into account that has very little to do with, you know, who's actually stronger.
No one gave Luffy food and was just like, if Kizaru doesn't die, I'm going to starve for the rest of my life. Like, otherwise I'd be like, we'll call it right here, Travis. I mean, right, Kizaru doesn't make it out of this arc, but no, that's not the case.
Vegapunk technically gave him food. You know, that counts, right?
Sure, fine. Atlas did. Atlas did, we already went through that.
But that's why he got so mad when Atlas got hurt. Yes, he was like, hey, wait a minute. You know, good old Luffy never changed, my friend.
If only Sentomaru had given him food, then it'd be a different story, wouldn't it?
Right. You know, I want to talk about Sentomaru for a minute here, because they make a lot of talk about defense in this. About Sentomaru's defense, it's the greatest defense in the world. He said that before. Clearly, that was cocky. And Kizaru's the one who taught it to him. So
well, I mean, I don't think it's that out of place cocky, because Kizaru says my defense is just as tough as yours.
It's just as tough as yours.
That tells me that Sentomaru's defense really is like at a level that's unbelievable.
So now that makes me wonder if Kizaru actually has defensive properties beyond just maybe some advanced armament hockey.
Oh, he ate the defenso fruit.
Yeah, he's got 2 devil fruits or something.
He's a defense man.
Where Luffy has to get more creative to even like land a hit. That would be interesting. It would be really funny. This is an absolutely shot in the dark. I doubt we would even see it, but it would be amazing if there was a Gear 4th form, specifically like an anti-Kizaru Gear 4th form that we never saw. And so Oda just slides it in here now where it doesn't matter. Just to do it. I mean, you could even make the argument that something like Snake Man, where it's very fast, very repetitive, difficult to predict, is exactly the kind of counter that Kizaru has a hard time with, because, you know, a really strong hockey attack requires him to actually dodge, not just teleport. We see that with Sentomaru. So, you know, we've kind of got this weird balancing act that's happening with that little brief fight, little brief flashback that might be giving us hints as to what's actually going on here.
That's kind of what I'm alluding to in terms of like the way that Luffy could really turn the table of a fight early on, knowing what he already knows about Kizaru. He's not a totally new opponent. I think he's somebody he's seen fight before at Marineford, and I think he's probably thinking to himself things that we've been reminded of in the Sentomaru fight, of how Kizaru fights, how he turns to light, but he has to turn back physical, right? In order to do what he does. Like, he can't just like zip around and be like a bullet. Like, there are limits to his powers. And I just wonder if there's going to be something that Luffy has already figured out that has him so confident, because when he first sensed him, he was just like, whoa, somebody really strong. Uh-oh. But now he's a little bit of like, all right, I've got this, and look, we've seen that look on Luffy's face before, right before getting wrecked by Kaido off screen. So it's not exactly the most assuring thing at this point in the story. But yeah, no, I was also going to mention with Sentomaru, it's kind of weird how, I don't know if there's anything of this, but like, we don't really get like a full shot of like him in the present day. Like, all the shots of him are like, and this is just good paneling, but like half cuts, like part of his body, the desperation of like, he just doesn't have a foothold. We never see him though, like in form. Like, he is just constantly on the back foot of this. And like, I love it in just the sense that like, we really see how Kizaru is like just an insurmountable obstacle, but it makes me like Sentomaru so much more than I used to. I genuinely was not the biggest Sentomaru fan. I mean, we do see him at one point running away, so we kind of see him in form, but it's not like a cool pose. You know what I mean? And I feel so bad because like, he's such an underdog here. He's already injured. Rob Lucci almost killed him like a day before this. And the fact that he's still like, his values and his sense of justice, of sticking up for Vegapunk. I mean, it's a way to go out. I don't think he's dead, but if this was like the ending of this character, or the beginning of the ending of this character, I think it's a tragic but very compelling, end of the road for him, I guess. I don't know if you'd agree.
I think so. I think Sentomaru's always been a nerd.
He's our nerd.
He's our nerd, right? He's a character that kind of was just always here. He appears a couple of times and it's like, cool. All right. I like the design. But it's really here that he's given his whole fleshed out moment. And you're right. Some of this has been explored in SBS. Kid fans, here's hoping maybe you get one more kid flashback after all. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm okay with bringing the character count a little bit down, because honestly, we've introduced a lot in just this arc, this first arc of this final saga, where, yeah, we could probably start trimming just a little bit off the sides here in these kind of quick battles. Because again, I think that it gives us information. It gives us a look that's going to be impactful in the rest of the arc, even without Sentomaru actually being active.
I mean, yeah. I felt something, like when we go to that flashback and Sentomaru says if he has a job, he's gonna buy onigiri. I hope we get the onigiri move from Zoro at some point. But like, that's just so sad. I mean, when you see Borsalino's face, I'm gonna call him Borsalino in this instance, and he's like, you were so adorable back then, and that's like a genuine smile. You even see him like kind of bantering with Sentomaru, who calls him an old man. I wonder. I didn't read the original Japanese for this one, but no, I did read it. I don't remember what he calls him. I don't think it was Aniki though. I don't know if he called him uncle or if he called just like legit old man, because the joke, of course, we get a little bit of Borsalino being like, excuse me, you see this youthful skin? Maybe, Travis, I'm just desperate for crumbs of like Kizaru personality. Like, who is this guy? He's such an enigma to me, and I want to figure him out. I need to figure him out somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, this is definitely I think this is a Kizaru joint now, right? Like, this is where we get to learn this. And I think that this little attachment to Sentomaru is why he insisted, because we talked about it before. This guy does not like getting his hands dirty if he absolutely can avoid it. He doesn't want to fight Ben Beckman, right? Like, no.
But if he has a checklist, all bets are off.
Well, he's
right?
a checklist, right? But for even Garcia was giving him now. He's like, just blow him up. Why do you have to go do this? And he's like, no, I have to do this. This actually means something to me. That's so revealing about him as a character. I don't know what it means yet, beyond he actually can form attachments with people, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an attachment that was important enough for him to be the one to sever it.
I would love so much. I know this isn't going to happen, but if he fights Luffy for a bit, Luffy kind of outclasses him, but it's not going to, change anytime soon. But if he then switches sides, pulls a Stussy, if the incident had something to do with Kuzan dying or maybe sacrificing himself or doing something just completely unprecedented, I mean, Travis, how badass would that be? I mean, Come on.
We've had the admirals for so long that everybody's like, I would like all of the admirals to defect. Because ACAB, right? Except Sakazuki because he opened a donut shop, but the rest of them, they can't be bad guys, right? They're too cool. We're too attached to them. Nah. One of these guys has to be cold enough to take down his own, self-appointed nephew, and still work on getting the job done. Like, I think that is a part of who he is. I don't think it's a double cross. This is kind of his jam. This is the man he is.
Do you think, back to the Lucci versus Zoro fight, I think this is a tough fight, but I kind of wonder if Sanji might join in. Now, if it's Sanji and Zoro versus Lucci, I mean, the end. That's all she wrote, folks. Thanks for playing. I mean, I don't see how Lucci even stands a chance. I think he stands a chance against Zoro if he catches Zoro off guard or just does something to kind of disrupt the fight. I don't know. But if Sanji gets in on it, I think that kind of pushes him to a breaking point that, just wanted to put that out there because I don't see why Sanji wouldn't join in the fight, right?
That's a good point, because now you have... the way we've done these before, right? There's usually, at the very least, the monster trio will go and do brawls while other characters do stuff. And so now we have Zoro out of the Labo phase, and we have Luffy out of the Labo phase doing that. So either Sanji gets involved here, or there's something else that prompts him to exit the Labo phase. Going to help protect Lilith might be it, but who would he fight? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Kaku's, down for the count. Basically these bubbles are apparently pretty good. So, maybe teaming up. I know some people have kind of wanted Sanji to be the one to fight Kizaru too, so maybe they tag out. Oh yeah, I kind of wonder what they're going to do with Sanji. I'm not too sure. The rest of them, again, I really feel like the Seraphim are going to be the wild cards here in terms of giving us some more threats and opponents. Because I mean, we still haven't had Jinbei really talk about being cloned against his will, or without his knowledge, I should say. Like, what's his, how does he feel about that? Maybe he wants to put the kid down, put the kid in his place a little bit. I would love to see a little bit more of that. Speaking of which, it would be great if Frankie had more than one panel talking with Vegapunk. What's up with that? Can we have these two interact some more before Vegapunk inevitably dies?
No, I could not agree more with that. I did kind of want to mention, there's been some speculation that we have not seen a Logia awakening yet, haven't we? Right? So I kind of want to put that into the universe because I feel like we could be headed toward Kizaru doing that and totally shifting everything we know and creating a huge problem. But do you think that's in the cards, or do you think I'm being greedy? I've been wanting it so badly.
No, I think it's absolutely on the table. If they couldn't, you could say that they didn't use it in Marineford for hundreds of reasons because it changes something that would have harmed their own people. I don't know. Oda hadn't come up with it. That's the real answer, right? So now that Luffy is a certified threat, we know he's awakened. Again, all it would take is a word from J. Garcia Saturn being like, hey, it's not actually rubber, it's this. And, that complicates things. I think Logia Awakening would absolutely change the scoring, right? It would put Luffy on the back foot, at least for a moment, because it would be something that he doesn't know about Kizaru.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. So I'm just very curious to see it. I've always wanted to see the Logia Awakening and what is that going to be? There's a theory out there that it's going to be kind of similar to the mythical Zoan fruits where they turn into mythical beasts, right? And if there were we've already seen the Phoenix, Marco and all that, if there's some kind of if Logia you became the spirit of nature or something. I forget exactly how that theory goes, but basically you'd be the god of fire or something like that. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. That's actually, you think about Kizaru's moveset, it really plays into certain Japanese mythology. That's
true. Yeah, the ancient artifacts of Japan. You're right.
So I wonder if that could be like a hint to what that might take the form of. I mean, I would not complain one bit if that's what we end up getting, because the Logia fruits were once the most powerful, tier of this entire system. For a while, they couldn't even be hit. So now that a lot of the time skip is focused on the other two aspects of devil fruits, not to mention hockey, it would be nice to kind of raise that last little part of the triangle up to the steps. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Anything else? I mean, I know we have the battle with the Vice Admirals against the Sea Beasts. I hope to see a little bit more Vice Admiral action. We haven't gotten a ton, but we're getting like little bits here and there. Do you think they're going to be relevant moving forward, or do you think that's just going to be like
the shield is really the complicating thing with this, right? Because I would love to see Sanji react to Dahl. That would be fun. I think the Vice Admirals would make some decent threats for some of these other crew members to face, maybe. They need the shield to come down to escape.
Mm-hmm.
But if that shield comes down, all hell breaks loose. So I don't even know if I want it to come down. Would it be better to leave it up and just fight Kizaru and Rob Lucci? I mean, that really complicates everything. This is not a win scenario right now. I mean, there's too many of them with designs now, right? We see them fight. They're Vice Admirals. They are supposed to be Garp's rank. They're not as powerful as Garp, obviously, because they don't have the age on him. But they have to be powerful. One of them has like the cool, like inspired by film Z arm, like the steam powered like gauntlet. That's a really cool fighting augment that I think would make some cool choreography beyond just punching some sea beasts. So I think I would like to see them come up and get their butts kicked on the Labo phase as well. But at the same time, if that happens, I'm going to start getting sweaty again. I'll be like, this might not go super well for our gang. Like, I guess at this point, I really want to know what everyone else is doing. We know what Luffy's doing. We know what Zoro's doing. What's everybody else up to? What are they going to do? Usopp's not going to sit there and watch TV the whole time, is he? Right? Like,
yeah, because I think part of it is that they're still recuperating. They're still kind of recovering from the Seraphim stuff. I wonder if one of them might go get the Seraphim and maybe like try to use the Seraphim in some way. Even though they know about the authority chip, maybe they think that they could like wrangle that away from Kizaru. Maybe they could try to use the Seraphim against the fleet without Kizaru. No, I don't know. That's a tough thing to manage.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because they don't know that Jay Garcia Saturn is on a boat outside.
That's true. But they do know that the Admiral is. They know that the Admiral is kind of in control of the situation.
Right, but they don't know.
They think Vegapunk can supersede them?
Yeah, Vegapunk would supersede it, right? Am I understanding the authority hierarchy? I'm going to slide back on this now to the page so I know that I'm not crazy.
Well, in this chapter, they don't show where the Admirals fall on the authority chip. They show Vegapunk is above Sentomaru and the Five Elders are above Vegapunk. I don't think we've ever gotten confirmation the Five Elders and the Admirals are above Vegapunk, but I can double check.
No, the Admiral, Kizaru uses the chip. The authority chip is actually necessary for Kizaru.
Yes.
But yeah, Vegapunk would override the authority chip. They have all the Vegapunks.
So then,
all they need to do is shut York up long enough to control them, right? So
is the reason? So Vegapunk just doesn't have a way to communicate with the pacifistas right now,
right?
Do you think he's going to go and try to do that? But he can't because the barrier's not down.
Yeah, he can't, because again, we have this tenuous kind of.
Is there anyone who can get through the barrier? Do we know anybody?
Kizaru would be
besides Kizaru,
and
Lafayette. There's got to be somebody. Come on.
Is this your Caribou ex machina of...
Oh my God.
of the episode?
This is it. Travis, you're right. Caribou is the one. If not Caribou, which I'm not ruling that out. I mean, we do have... I had it a second ago. We have the pigeon. No, we had
Yeah,
somebody
did
else.
the pigeon narc on Lucci, by the way?
I was going to bring that up. That was suspicious. Was it just that Hatchery like had to move off of Lucci and didn't know it was going to happen? It might have been unintentional.
That's probably
Zeus.
it.
That's what I was going to say. Zeus could do it, right? Why couldn't Zeus go through the barrier? He's a cloud.
But Cloud. So
it's okay. We can change the
man,
subject. You don't have to grapple with what I just say.
I'm gonna try to figure out what's the difference between light particles. If my spouse listens to this, she's gonna be like, "You're such a loser."
Yeah, why don't you know science?
Why don't you know this? Why don't you know science? But because Zeus would still be water molecules even as a cloud, which should be different than light. Do clouds pass through the? Have we seen clouds pass through the lava phase at all? I don't. What?
Your guess is as good as mine.
What?
My thing with the labo phase 2, the barrier. Why don't they just destroy the thing that's powering it? I don't get it. Like they just have to bring the shield down.
It would shut Punk Records off, though, wouldn't it?
Is that bad?
I mean, we talked about power sources before. Earlier in the arc, so it wouldn't shock me if like whatever they had come up with was plugged into everything. So
I wonder if that's the last resort. It's like if Vegapunk at some point is just like, all right, I didn't want to do this, but I'm gonna have to like basically go for broke here, and the only way to bring this thing down is by force, and that's gonna, could that be the thing that endangers the mother frame or the flame or like the labs, and like because if they destroy the lab, that would be another sort of like, we're in trouble because
Stupid question. Stupid question. If you shut off Punk Records, do you shut off Vegapunk?
The satellites?
Not just the satellites. Do you shut off the Stella if you were to destroy Punk Records?
So I did kind of wonder that for a second, but then I was like, I don't know. Because they just use it to sync with each other, right? Like,
well, it's literally
is it Wi-Fi that we're dealing with here? Do they need a router? I don't think so. York was able to go to we don't know.
York was able to disconnect, right? She was able to desync, but it's still technically active. But
you think it could be like a big sacrifice? All the satellites, all the Stella are gonna
blow
die.
up the
Stella is Vegapunk, right?
Stella is Vegapunk, yes. And since he's the devil fruit holder, because it's important, it's not just that he's super smart. He has a devil fruit. If that brain is destroyed or damaged, it's still a part of his body, right?
I think so. I don't think it's connected to him in a way that he would die, though.
Well, I mean, devil fruit powers work on your, other parts. Why wouldn't
devil fruit powers work on whatever Oda decides at the time? As we have established since 1997.
The answer, but every time he decides, the answer is always yes.
yes. So this is a yes and situation, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like that brain. The only reason it's so big, the only reason it even works as a database, is because of his devil fruit.
So I would posit that it's not that it would kill him, but I think you're right to speculate that there would be a huge downside, a huge loss of knowledge, a big blow to everything Vegapunk has worked for. Give the guy some kind of thing to lose and make it big enough to warrant this big incident or something. But I feel like just bringing the barrier down by itself, it hasn't happened yet for a reason. And I don't know. And I'm just putting it out there. Maybe in a chapter or two, they'll be like, all right, we hacked our way to the solution. Maybe that'll be all it is. But
I mean, I hope we get at least a chapter of just like Luffy and Kizaru, like to really play this out. It's the first time we've ever gotten it. We need to savor this.
I know, Oda-sama, excuse me. He doesn't listen to Rookie Pirate Radio. He learned his lesson. But I like to think that like if he did, he'd just be laughing to himself, suddenly and by the way, like, using a Google Translate, and just being like, John and Travis, you've done it again. You've completely missed what I was setting up. I expected more out of you. We're the Sentomaru in this situation. And our speculation defense is nothing compared to his.
I mean, you're not wrong. There's a non-zero chance that this comes back in 7 days, and we cut to Windmill Village. Like, who knows anymore, right?
That's everything I had for the chapter. A lot of stuff we got into. I feel like we had a good nice, well-rounded discussion. Hoping to talk a little bit about some extra fun anime / light novel manga stuff if you want. But unless you had like any final thoughts on this one,
I can't. Just straight up, I can't believe we're here. We're fighting an admiral. One way or another, it's happening.
I'm so happy it's happening. It's just it feels like such a long time coming. It's been 13, 14 years or something like that since we were at this point since we were at Sabari in the manga. Wild stuff. All right. So we are getting chapter 1092 this week. I peeked at the schedule. It looks like we're supposed to get 1093 the next week. So I think we're getting 2 chapters in a row, which would be really awesome. But we'll be also doing our season 1 live action conversation here on the podcast. Probably more as a bonus thing, so we can cover everything. But stay tuned for that. And let's do a little quick anime, other stuff check in. I say that because I haven't been watching a ton of anime lately. I've been watching Mushoku Tensei season 2, and I've also been watching a couple things here and there. Nothing that like I've been fully committed to, however. But I wanted to bring up a couple light novels. I did, Travis. I caught up on Mushoku Tensei, the light novels, at least the ones that have been translated. I think there's like one more, volume 25 or 26. That is that's already been released in Japan, and I think the next one's going to be coming out this November. As you can tell, I've been staring at the schedule because Mushoku Tensei, which by the way I started at volume 11 because that's where I left off in the manga. And you're right, Travis, I have been reading the earlier light novels from Mushoku Tensei now, the ones of which I've already seen in the anime, because that's my life now. And I got to tell you, Travis, after reading, let's see, it was about 13 light novels in a row. First of all, expensive hobby, because those light novels are not as cheap as they should be, considering how long they are. I just wanted to point that out. But I'm very, very satisfied with Mushoku Tensei as a light novel series. I mean, it's been such a joyful month of just devouring the story. And it reminds me when I first got into Game of Thrones and then subsequently A Song of Ice and Fire. And it truly is it's certainly a powerhouse of a mythology that I think is just getting bigger and bigger thanks to the anime. And I just wanted to put that out there. If you ever get into it, you know where I am, Travis. You can talk to me about it.
You reached out to me heartbroken too when you finished that last light novel.
They don't all end in cliffhangers. Most of them don't. And the one that I get caught up on, the one that just came out in August, so it's going to be at least 6 months or something, biggest cliffhanger, since I think the first few volumes. There's an incident that happens called the displacement incident very early on in Mushoku Tensei. We're talking first part of season 1. And that was a big cliffhanger. But this is the biggest since then, and it's even bigger. It's so wild. And I'm just what is going to happen? And I almost want to, I want to find the Japanese translated, and I don't think I'm there, Travis. I don't think I'd be able to read it in the original Japanese and really follow, because Rudius Greyrat, he is a character who's very hard to decipher. I do not envy the translators. They must have an amazing time at that. But anyway, that's one thing I've been on about. Was there anything you kind of want to shout the praises of? I got a couple of other things.
I do want to very briefly touch on Shonen Jump itself, because we're in the fall of the magazine, which means it's time to execute a bunch of manga publicly. And we are saying goodbye to many series in the next little while.
Like what?
So the one that I want to call out, because I actually feel genuinely sad to see it go, is Tenmaku Cinema. And it is
not seen this or read this.
It is a manga by the creators of Food Wars. Hang on.
Not to say. Okay. I mean, Travis.
Hang on. It is very much not Food Wars. None of the fan services here. None of the kind of suggestiveness. That's all a separate series. This is very much the writer and the artist trying an entirely new direction. So the pitch of this is it follows Hajime Shinji. He is a film nerd in high school. And one night he goes to a film festival for just playing the old films of a prolific director who's passed away. And during the screening of this film, he becomes possessed by this spirit named Tenmaku.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Of course, as you do at film festivals. And this spirit is the most annoying guy on earth because he's a bigger film nerd than Hajime. And over the course of the first early chapters, you learn that Tenmaku was actually the adopted son of this director who passed away and was actually the writer of most of the scripts. But because he was so young and he wanted to be protected, they never published his name. So something happens. He passes away. He ends up basically haunting the last film that he worked on. And his final script his final scripts were never really done. And so the ghost goes on this mission to find somebody to make the final movie. And that's when the plot twists. And inspired by just looking at one of Hajime's classmates, Tenmaku writes an entire short film by possessing his new friend's body and writing an entire screenplay overnight. And the entire manga becomes about recruiting people in his film club and this classmate who turns out to be a secret actress because, like you do.
Oh, because it has to be even more like Rent a Girlfriend season 3?
Right. This is significantly better than that though, because it's very passionately about like filmmaking. They talk about like the kind of like really low rent like effort that they have to put into using an iPhone to shoot this movie, and kind of the way they use like a school cart to do a tracking shot, or they use a school trip to the beach to do those shots. And it kind of makes this heartwarming story because the conflicts that they come up with come from how do we get this shot to look good, and then they get all the technical stuff figured out, and then there becomes an emotional conflict. Somebody can't show up to do the lines, somebody can't get into character, someone's camera shy, and it kind of just becomes this fun, kind of wholesome student project to get this film made. And then they finish it, and it's really good. And her agent mother sees it because they were doing it in secret from her, and it changes. It restores the relationship between mother and daughter. They have to rush this whole ending and everything, and it was still a pretty good ending, all things considered. They hit the most important beats, but man, I would have loved to see this one go longer. It's one of those bittersweet ones where I think it's still worth reading. It's just a brief, like 21 chapters. But I was really rooting for this one, let me tell you.
I mean, at least they get to end it, but yeah, that's a little sad. Do you think we could get an anime adaptation for it at some point? Maybe one that could, maybe round out the ending a little bit better?
It really is going to come down to sales, because that's what really dooms you in Jump, is you have to hit the ground running. We've talked about this before. These days, Shueisha isn't just looking for a successful manga series. They're looking for something to replace One Piece. They're looking for the stuff that can get parlayed into anime and franchise stuff right away. But they also know that if they just blatantly chase that, all they're going to get is diminishing returns. So they're throwing all these ideas at the wall. They're throwing all of these, well-worn creators back into the fire, and they're trying all these new ideas. This is not the first returning successful mangaka in the past 5 years who have come, put out a series, got to 2 volumes, and had it canceled. Hell's Paradise's mangaka had a year and a half ago had their series cut short. Not Hell's Paradise, but their follow-up. Despite that one being another one that I enjoyed. Of course, Masashi Kishimoto was running a brand new samurai manga. It was this big hyped thing. Masashi Kishimoto's coming back. He's starting a whole new universe. It's not tied to Boruto or Naruto. It's this whole unique thing. And it tanked. So it's a very weird time for Jump where I don't know. I do read everything new that they add, because I also would like to see some of these new series thrive. And we have seen some really, really good ones, but I can't shake the feeling that, Jump is going to run 3 new series. They started one this week. There should be another one next week and another one the week after. They do this every year now, to the point where it feels like the treadmill has just had its pace increased so hard.
Makes you wonder, like what's behind that, because there's a lot of great stuff. It's not like it used to be. You can't have really like a big 3 anymore. We've talked about this a bunch. We're kind of past that point. We're at the point where everybody has their like 3 or 4 that they really like, but there isn't this sort of like everybody knows One Piece, everybody knows Naruto, everybody, like the closest we get to that is, Spy Family and, My Hero Academia, which is almost done. And, Jujutsu Kaisen could get to that point at some point.
Jujutsu Kaisen is trying its damnedest to finish. That's for sure. But like even being successful once doesn't guarantee you anything anymore.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to happen with Chainsaw Man. If that's going to be diminishing returns. Howl's Paradise, I don't think blew up as much. There's Demon Slayer, but again, that's one that's like, it's already 200 chapters in. Black Clover is on its way out. They're kind of rushing the ending of that.
Oh, Black Clover. Black Clover is another I don't know if you've even heard this. I might be breaking your heart here. Black Clover is not even going to end its run in Jump.
That makes sense to me. I did hear about this. It's like switching over to, it was already like a very uneven schedule. Because so they were skipping a lot. Yeah. And then there was a huge hiatus. And
so they're moving it to Jump Giga, which means it's going to be either, I think it's like quarterly or monthly.
It's going to be monthly, I think, but it's so close to being done. I think that's probably why. It's just the interest is not there. Like if you reading Black Clover now, I'm like 2 or 3 chapters behind. That breaks my heart. Like where the story just like, I'm not going to give anything away, but I mean, like they had a really good, like they were in the zone with that series. And then like the last big arc ended and we just bypassed all the progress. And like, there was this chance to kind of reset and rethink. And then it's just like, it's so rushed. It's unbelievable. And I think the anime ending too had a lot to do with that, but I shouldn't say ended necessarily. But
I think we're really in a point now where we're going to see more and more mangaka kind of cut the fat when it comes to their stories because of stuff like that, because they're rushing this ending, but doing that is taking such a toll at the same time on the mangaka. I have a sneaking suspicion that My Hero may go the same way, because we've had multiple, I don't know if you're reading it, and again, I don't want to spoil anything. No. We've had multiple weeks where My Hero Academia chapters are literally half of a regular Shonen Jump chapter.
That's wild.
And it's not for lack of trying, because the pages that are coming out are great. They look stellar. Like the story is moving forward. They're not, it's not like it's spinning its wheels at any regard, but it's very clearly taking its toll to get finished. And I mean, that's why Demon Slayer ended after 200 chapters. That's why Mashal finished before it even hit 200. Like, why, you do this, you get your anime deal within your first year and a half now, unless you're Sakamoto days for some reason. And then you just move on. I mean, like Kaiju number 8 only has like 60, 70 chapters, and it's already got its anime on the way next year. And that mangaka gets every fourth week off completely. Just as a break, like naturally as a part of their schedule. So like, I mean, we're really at the precipice of, I think, some changes to
a seismic shift
format. Yeah. It's going to happen one way or the other.
Yeah. And we should mention, I mean, this is going to be for people like you and me. I mean, once the writers strike in Hollywood and like, we're going to be facing a situation where TV and movies is going to be bleak. It's already bleak, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sort of, especially TV for me right now, very few shows I'm interested in. And I'm spending way more of my time prioritizing stuff coming out of Japan at the moment. But I think Japan is going to be going through all kinds of stuff right now. Just watch the first episode of Zom 100. You know what I'm talking about. On that note, I will say, like, Boruto, Travis, you warned me, but you couldn't have possibly warned me enough. I'm 66 chapters into the manga, trying to catch up out of obligation. It is bad. Like, it is just, I don't know happened. Like I genuinely like it's better than the anime. I'll give it that. The anime is unwatchable for me. Like I genuinely cannot sit through it.
What's wild about you saying that is that I would still take the anime and all of its silly filler over this, because at least the anime for a while got to be about a ninja kid going to ninja school and doing ninja kid things, and then the stuff that they did to like follow up like with the Earth Kingdom or to
the Earth Kingdom,
explore
Avatar. But no, you're right. That filler arc.
Goodness, it's like
that filler arc with that not the Hokage, but the Kage of the one in the clouds or the stone. And it's like the old man from Naruto.
Yeah.
That was a good arc. Like, you could have told me that was canon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's a character that they weren't going to use in the manga, they even got to do a character arc with him. Yeah. So, like, it was actually good. Bits
I started Boruto with the
much
anime.
Better than the manga.
Well, I started it with the anime, and I'd say like the first like 50, like most of the first part of it is like way before the manga starts, and that stuff was decent. Like it wasn't a great anime or anything, but actually like it falls off for me once we get to like the scientific ninja tool stuff, and
you get to the stuff that they need for the manga. You mean?
All of the stuff involving the manga. I mean, once you get into the karma, once you get into the Otsuki Ishti stuff, like I like budget Akatsuki. That's all it is. And it's not interesting. And I get the idea of like, well, we got to sort of almost like reclaim or kind of like, what's the word? We need to refresh, or we need to vindicate, or we need to like salvage how bad the Deus Ex Machina stuff was at the end of Naruto. We have to like the whole sort of like Kaguya, like all of a sudden at the very end, the villain was this person all along. Well, Boruto coming in is like, now we're going to resolve that. Don't worry. It was planned all along, like, all right, sure. Whatever you say. Kishimoto definitely had that in mind, but no, manga's terrible. And I'm hoping that like Travis, a couple people told me that like, hey, maybe it's going to get off here soon, and I'm sticking with it because Naruto and I go way back. But
how far are you?
65, 66, I want to say.
Let me remind myself, because so basically there's
code
a moment.
Stuff is happening now. Like
Code
and Kawaki are doing their thing, fighting, and
you are
Boruto's
very close
to
you're pretty close to, if not right there. And I'm probably going to be wrong about this, and somebody's going to correct me. But you'll recall, earlier in this episode, I mentioned Masashi Kishimoto made a new series and then it got canceled.
Well, that's why I'm getting back into it. Yes, because he's coming back, and
he comes back around where you are now, and there is a very noticeable shift. And I gotta be honest, it feels mean. It feels like Kishimoto busted down the doors, and like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was like, "Oh, you want Naruto? Is that all you want? Well, fine, and I'm going to make it hurt." And it doesn't make it much better. Like, I'm mostly reading it out of obligation just because someone will ask me one day, I'm sure. But
it's a responsibility. This is why you're here.
I'm glad it's monthly. Monthly.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, even just binging it is pretty... I can only read like one chapter a day, to be totally honest with you. There are times when I'm just like, all right, I'll read the next one. I am a little bit hooked, but then at this point, reading more than 2 in one sitting is too much. I do want to bring up light novels, please.
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to do one more Naruto thing. Sorry.
Go for it.
I was going to say, it's a shame because it was really good. That Minato story.
I didn't read the one shot you're talking about?
Yeah, the one shot for the character poll.
Okay.
That was actually good.
There was a Sasuke one too, right?
There was this one with Minato and like the story of like the Rasengan. So the reason it exists is they did a character poll for the anime's anniversary, and Kishimoto basically was like, whoever wins I will write a thing about them. Like, he didn't have any plans. It was just the prompt is going to be, who is the character you want content for? And Minato won by like a hair. So it was either going to be the fourth Hokage or Itachi. Those were your content options.
I'm so glad Minato won. I mean,
so there was much gnashing of teeth and wailing in my household when that poll ended.
Well,
but
hopefully people weren't just like, oh, we weren't talking about Minato the fourth Hokage. We were talking about Minato the prefecture in Japan, Excuse me.
Yeah, but Kishimoto sat down to write it, and he kind of settled on what he was going to make, and then he said that it actually went twice the length of what the original pitch was, and because of that, it's a little bit more wholesome. It has a little bit more emotion to it. It feels like good Naruto. Because Naruto, it's easy to shit on it, right? But it was good once. That's why we talk about it.
Of course. Yeah, it had its time, though, and I feel like we're trying to drag that out in a way. But I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm sure some people get something out of Boruto that makes them feel something, and I'm not going to take that away from them. Can I talk about my isekai novels now, please?
Yes.
I only have 3 to bring up. Well, the first one, I brought it before, which is Berserk Gluttony. I'm on number 5, and I'm very excited for the anime. I've read some of the manga too. The manga is okay, and I know I said that last time. The anime I think will be fun. My thing with Berserk of Gluttony, it should have ended by now. I'm really feeling like they're stretching it out, and it's kind of past its peak for me at this point, but I like the characters, so I'm like, I'll keep hanging out with you guys, but we graduated from middle school. It's probably time to go to our own respective high schools and say goodbye. But it's still with us, and I think it's 8 or 9 novels in at this point, so I'll be caught up pretty soon. I won't be sad. I won't be depressed like I've been in the past, you know me. I also started reading The World's Finest Assassin. Let me make sure I read the whole title, actually, because I don't have it in front of me. It's The World's Finest Assassin gets reincarnated something. So there we go. Gets reincarnated in another world as an aristocrat, which I'm just on the first novel for that. And I watched a little bit of the anime a couple months ago, and I wasn't grabbed by it. I watched the first 10, 15 minutes, and I was like, I don't know. And then I saw it was a light novel, and I was like, I'm having better luck with light novels. So I'm going to try that, and then maybe revisit the anime. And I like it. It's kind of fun. I don't know if you ever watched the anime or got into it at all, but it's a fun. It's an isekai. You know what the deal is. He has been tasked with assassinating the hero who's going to defeat the Demon King in 18 years, and so he's going to grow up doing everything he can to assassinate someone who's impossible to kill. Fun premise, not gonna lie to you, and it's isekai.
Why do you think that is that you're having a lot these light novels, when you pick them up and read them, you're having a much better time than their adaptations? Is it just, are the adaptations weak? Are they missing things? What's up with that? A
lot of the time the animation is compromised, because I think that the animation can be, first of all, very fan servicey, but also it has kind of a low budget quality to it that really sticks out to me. I also think that the anime doesn't pace things super well. The anime starts with a scene that happens way farther. I haven't even gotten to the point of the light novel where the first scene happens. And it gives away a lot that I think is really fun to discover. But I think they do that because it's a scene that's meant to be kind of this payoff of here is this assassin at his full sort of the height of his powers or whatever. It's kind of like how Boruto kind of starts off with that tease, except instead of a tease, it feels a little bit too much of all right, I know where everything's headed. So it kind of robs me of the buildup. Whereas the light novel has a slower start, but it kind of trusts you a bit. And it also, the anime drags his life as an assassin in our world. So the premise is that he's the world's greatest assassin. He dies, and then he gets reincarnated to be an assassin in a fantasy world, an isekai, because of his skills on Earth. Fun. But for some reason, they're well, we got to have a 15-minute sequence of you didn't need that. Just of him when he's old and over the hill. The light novel just glosses over that and gets right into it. And it kind of reminds me of when you read the early Naruto, where a lot of it is there's a little bit more thinking stuff going on. He's an assassin. He's like a shinobi. He can't just sort of win by force. So a lot of it is strategy and how am I best going to be able to assassinate this person? A lot of the novel is him just picking his skills. He has a limited set of skills he's allowed to pick. He has a huge advantage, but he thinks like an assassin and how he's going to do that. And of course, you're right, Travis. You don't even have to bring it up that this is about a man who had a cold heart as an assassin and finding love in a harem, obviously. in this fantasy world, what are you going to do? It's what we're here for. It's why isekai exists, right? So I enjoy it, but I would say that the light novel I'm liking more than the anime. I finished the first episode of the anime and I was like, whatever. But I do want to keep watching it because I like in tandem. Now that it does do that first scene, but then it goes back, and so I'll keep tracking with it, Travis, and I'll let you know if it's continues to be fun trash. And then the last thing I had was Disciple of the Leash, or How I Was Cursed by the, I don't have the title in front of me, I'm working off memory, or How I Was Cursed by the Gods and Dropped into the Abyss. That's it. Have you heard of this thing? I don't even know if it's an anime. I just started reading it today.
No.
This one,
I mean, that was a vague title, to be fair, but
vague title, yeah. Could it have possibly? So the premise of this one, and again, light novel. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already an anime or it's gonna be one at some point. But so the premise of this is like this kind of loser guy, kind of your typical like Mushoku Tensei, kind of like life sucks. He's 20 years old. He has nothing going on for him. He has a cat that he loves. But he gets swept away by a god who is just like, haha, you have been isekai'd, and very self-aware, very meta, just like, he's like, oh yeah, like in light novels. Okay. But the god apparently says that like the gods actually read isekai and find them very fun. Congratulations, you get to be in the Hunger Games. We're creating like an isekai for gods, so it's meta. And at first it's like, oh, and you get all these cheat skills, you're gonna have all these powers. And he's like, could I go home? I have a cat. I really want to take care of my cat. And the god gets super offended. It's just like, are you joking? This is the whole point of this is for you to put on a show and to be entertaining. And so he punishes him by throwing him into the hardest part of like this abyss without any advantages, no extra skills. And it's just this guy who he kind of reminds me of the character from that anime, the guy, the Tyler sci-fi anime. I'm gonna look this up. It came out in like the 80s or 90s. I have no idea.
What is it? The Great Captain Tyler?
Yes. He's kind of like that protagonist where he fails his way to success from being just kind of a nice, quirky guy. I love it so far.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
That's been my healing.
That's great. I can't wait till I can see. Of course, listeners can't see this, but I can't wait till I see just a giant wall of light novels behind you, just threatening at all times to fall.
It to fall on my head. And because I mean, right now on the camera, you just see all the cracks in my skin from where Domestic Girlfriend broke me. And you can see the light novels reaching out and gluing me back together while you're trying to talk to me about the One Piece manga every week.
I mean, you say Domestic Girlfriend's the one that damaged you, but if there's anything that's caused you like physical harm, let's face it, it's Rent a Girlfriend.
That's psychic damage. I think we can, I mean, also Rent a Girlfriend. No, never mind. I'm not getting into that right now. No, that's already been invoked too many times. We'll be back to talk about One Piece live action or chapter 1093, or sorry, 1092, whichever comes first. But thank you so much for listening. We hope to connect with you on the Discord. And Travis, are you going to watch the One Piece live action season 1 again?
I do intend to run it back in the Japanese dub, if only because they went through the effort of getting the Straw Hats to voice them.
That was a classic
I gotta
setup.
do it.
Because I
gotta do it.
I might do the same. I want to watch it again because I enjoyed it quite a bit. So, all right, we'll be back later. See you, everybody.